The hospital morgue's fluorescent light flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. The metallic scent of disinfectant mixed with something else, something faintly sweet and decaying. A low hum filled the room, not from any machine, but from the walls themselves. Then, from behind the sealed steel door of Storage Unit 7 came a sound, not a groan or a cry, but a slow, deliberate scratch. It was the sound of fingernails dragging against the inside of a coffin. The man on the other side had been declared dead over a year ago. His body was cold, his organs silent, his brain waves flat for 438 days. He breathed. He moved. He existed. This was no fiction. This is the story of a man who existed in the impossible space between life and death, and what it cost him to return. Our story begins in a sun-drenched backyard, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and laughter. His wife, her face radiant, hands him a glass of lemonade, the ice cubes clinking softly. This moment of pure, unadulterated joy would become the anchor for his soul, and the weight that nearly drowned it. Suburban America. Meet John Miller, a contractor from Phoenix, Arizona, a husband to Sarah, a father to Lily and Ben. John's life was built with his own hands. His house, his family, his future. John was the anchor, the man who repaired everything, until his own body fractured beyond repair. A sudden, sharp pain lanced through his chest, sharp as shattered glass. The air grew heavy with the metallic scent of iron, and a cold dampness seeped through his shirt. In that moment, a primal dread took hold, his breath hitching in his throat. Ambulance lights carved the darkness, their rhythmic pulse bathing Sarah's terrified face in the sterile hospital waiting room. The narrator's voice dropped to a gravelly whisper. It was a massive, catastrophic heart attack, the kind they call a widowmaker. By the time they reached the street, John's heart was just shredded muscle, a ruined pump. Surgeons battled for hours against irreversible damage, delivering the unthinkable verdict: we can save his body, but not his heart. Their final, desperate recourse emerged: a total artificial heart. The metallic scent of ozone clung to the air as the device hummed to life. A mechanical whisper replaced the familiar rhythm, its cold perfection chilling the sterile room. They excised John's entire heart, every chamber, every valve, and replaced it with the syncardium. 2 plastic ventricles and a pneumatic driver now sat in a backpack, forcing blood through his vessels with mechanical insistence. It maintained circulation, but the vital, rhythmic thump of life was absent. Only the faint, sterile hum of the machine and the unsettling, continuous flow remained. John regained consciousness, his pallid skin stark against the sterile sheets. Thick, translucent tubes snaked from his chest to a humming console on wheels, pulsing with air instead of blood. The machine emitted a constant, unnatural rhythm, a hiss of compressed air followed by a mechanical thump. An ozone-like scent, sharp and metallic, hung in the air as John realized the profound wrongness of his new reality. He was alive, yet his wrist yielded no pulse beneath searching fingers. A stethoscope pressed to his chest revealed only a hollow, mechanical stillness. The air carried a faint scent of ozone and cold iron. His existence defied all natural laws, a chilling paradox of life without heartbeat. The low, mechanical whirring was the only sign of life in John's chest. Medically, he was a ghost inhabiting his own body. Now at home, he slung the heavy backpack driver over his shoulder. The weight of it pressed against him, a constant reminder of what he had become. He reached for his daughter Lily, but she recoiled, her wide eyes fixed on the sudden noise. His gaze dropped to his own trembling hand. The psychological toll was immediate and terrifying. Our heartbeat is the relentless score of our existence. It quickens with joy, slows in slumber, and hammers with dread. Now, it thundered with a fear that left the air thick and his breath shallow. Our most intimate proof of being alive. For John, it was the cold, ceaseless hiss emanating from his backpack. Sarah's voice, heavy with emotion, would later recall, he'd just stare into space for hours. A metallic scent, like ozone, clung to the air around him. He said he felt hollow, she whispered, the word itself carrying a tangible, chilling weight. It wasn't sickness that hollowed him out, but a profound emptiness, like a house built on shifting sand. A cold, damp chill clung to the air, carrying the faint, metallic scent of old iron. The children were paralyzed by a deep, wordless terror, and that same primal dread had taken a firm, icy grip on me. Then came the phantom pains. John would clutch his chest, gasping about a crushing weight, a terrible ache that felt like a vice tightening around nothing. But the heart he was feeling wasn't there. It was in a biohazard bin, long ago disposed of. In therapy, John struggled to articulate the impossible. His mind still screaming signals to an organ that was gone. His crude drawings depicted a faceless figure standing alone in an empty, windowless room. Then, the dreams began, not of noise, but of an absolute consuming silence. It was a deep, quiet void that seemed to swallow every echo of his former self. He'd jolt awake in a cold sweat, hands fumbling for the machine's controls, desperate for its mechanical confirmation of life. This machine was both his lifeline and his prison. A constant hum of sterile air and faint ozone. 438 days, over 14 months of waiting in this sterile cage. Waiting for a donor heart that might never arrive. At 3:17 a.m., the phone screamed to life. Sarah fumbled for the receiver, her breath hitching at the ragged sobs that bled through the line. A metallic scent, like old pennies and ozone, seemed to emanate from the handset itself. The message was a frantic, wordless plea, and it launched her into a blind, trembling scramble in the dark. John was rushed to the hospital. Day 438. The call came. A heart was available. But this was the most dangerous moment. To transplant the new heart, they had to switch off the machine entirely. For several long minutes during the procedure, John Miller would experience true, total clinical death. No artificial support remained active. His own heartbeat ceased completely. His heart lay still, a silent fist of muscle in his chest. To live, this pulseless man would have to briefly die. He would have to cross entirely into that cold, silent realm. Only there, in that breathless void, could he find a chance at true life. In the sterile room, the lead surgeon glanced at the clock, then spoke through his mask. His muffled voice counted down. "Driver off in 3, 2, 1. The hiss thump of machinery ceased, plunging the room into a profound stillness. After a few seconds of dead silence, only the slow, steady beeps of monitors remained as a digital timer ticked onward. For 5 minutes and 17 seconds, John was clinically dead. With the new heart meticulously sutured in place, the surgical team held their collective breath. The air grew heavy with the sharp scent of ozone from the defibrillator, and the only sound was the faint, rhythmic drip of saline from an IV line. They administered the first shock, and the monitor remained stubbornly flat, displaying a single, unwavering line. A palpable stillness settled over the room, thick with the dread of the unknown. A second time, a single, small blip flickers on the screen, a ghost of a signal. Then another, tentative and weak, like a faint knock from a locked room. Then a steady, rhythmic beep. Beep, beep begins, echoing in the sterile quiet. A beat. For the first time in 438 days, John Miller's chest held a beating human heart. The sterile air carried the faint tang of ozone and disinfectant, clinging to every surface. John stirred, consciousness returning like a slow, heavy tide, his body weak but present. A primal awareness settled over him, the unfamiliar rhythm in his chest, both a miracle and a haunting echo in the quiet room. Sarah pressed his hand to his chest, tears tracing her cheeks as she felt the faint, rhythmic thump-thump against her palm. The transplant had succeeded. John was coming home, but the air in the room carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone, like the aftermath of a storm. And somewhere, beneath the steady pulse, Sarah thought she heard a whisper, a dry, papery rustle that didn't belong. He returned to playing with his children and went back to his job. By every measure, it was a medical miracle. But this story doesn't conclude with a flawless, happy ending. Something had followed him home from that sterile hospital room. The air in his house began to carry the faint, metallic scent of ozone after a storm, a smell that had no source. At night, he'd wake to the sound of slow, deliberate dripping from a pipe he knew was bone dry. A creeping, damp cold would seep into his skin, unrelated to the thermostat. He found himself paralyzed not by fear, but by a deep, wordless dread that sat heavy in his chest. The miracle had saved his body, but it left a door ajar, and from the dark on the other side, something had begun to whisper his name. In his silent workshop, John sat motionless, his hand pressed against his chest. People think I must love the sound of it. This. His voice was a hollow murmur. He gave his sternum a single, firm tap, and I do. The admission hung in the stale, metallic air. John is grateful, but in the dead of night, when the house falls utterly still, he confesses a strange longing. He misses the noise. Not just any noise, but the specific, mechanical thrum of the machine that once kept him alive. Now, the only sound is the heartbeat in his own chest, a rhythm that feels alien. It's his life, yet it carries the ghostly cadence of a stranger, a foreign pulse now echoing within his ribs. That machine, it was more than a device. It was an extension of my very being. For over a year, its hum was the only proof I existed, a mechanical heartbeat in a void. Now, I'm left with the sticky residue of that connection and the heavy scent of ozone. Learning to be human again feels like a terrifying, unfamiliar skin. Not a patient, not a machine, but for 438 days, I existed as a ghost. The air carried the scent of ozone and decay, a cold, clinging presence that whispered of the void. You don't just come back from that. The world feels sticky and unreal. Every sound a distant echo. Now, John watches his family through the glass, a silent observer to a life he can no longer touch. They're laughing. He offers a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Almost unconsciously, he presses his ear to his own wrist, listening intently. A faint, metallic scent of ozone hangs in the air around him. John Miller got his life back, but he is forever a man of two hearts. One heart beats in silence, a gift from a stranger he'll never know. The other lives only in memory, a cold, mechanical whisper echoing through his mind. It is the ghost of the 438 days he spent in the pulseless void between living and dying. So we must ask, when your very heartbeat is borrowed, what part of you truly returned? The steady rhythm of a healthy heartbeat pulsed through the room, a familiar comfort that quickly curdled. It began to warp, the organic thump decaying into a sterile, mechanical hiss-thump, hiss-thump. The air itself seemed to grow cold and thin, carrying the faint, coppery scent of ozone. Then, with jarring finality, the sound ceased, leaving behind a vacuum of pure, absolute quiet.